Director Alfred Hitchcock is often referred to as the master of suspense. His movies, such as Rear Window, Vertigo, and Psycho, are all expert examples about how and when to reveal information to an audience.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
With North by Northwest, he applied those concepts to a chase movie where our main character is always in some kind of pursuit. But whether he's being pursued or pursuing, and who and where and why, is constantly changing to keep the audience on their toes. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. At first, the only idea Hitchcock had for his movie was that he knew he wanted the final showdown to happen at Mount Rushmore. He had envisioned a final scene where our hero has to hide in Lincoln's nose. He even thought they could call the movie The Man on Lincoln's Nose. Hitchcock hired screenwriter Ernest Lehman, who would go on to write movies like West Side Story and The Sound of Music, to help him make an actual story out of the Mount Rushmore scene. At one point, Hitchcock discovered a true story from World War II where British intelligence created a fake officer to trick Germans into receiving false information. So he and Lehman decided to make that the basis of the story with an added twist. Van Damme is smuggling state secrets out of the country. So US intelligence decides they need to send an undercover agent to infiltrate Van Damme's organization. But to make sure the undercover agent isn't caught, they also create a fake decoy agent to distract Van Damme. The decoy isn't even a real person, it's just a name, George Kaplan. But they make it seem like Kaplan is investigating Van Damme, so he'll use his energy and resources to chase a ghost. The question is, what if the ghost suddenly became real? Roger Thornhill is an advertising executive working in New York City. He goes to a business meeting at a hotel restaurant and just happens to signal the waiter at the exact same time the waiter is calling out for George Kaplan.
Perhaps if I sent you a telegram.
Mr. George Kaplan?
Boy.
Two men from Van Damme's team who asked the waiter to call for Kaplan now think Roger, a normal guy, is a spy working for US intelligence. They kidnap him and take him to their boss, but the interesting thing is, we as the audience have no idea what's happening. We get all of this context later. We follow Roger directly from his job to the meeting, and suddenly he's being abducted by two men.
Don't tell me where we're going. Surprise.
He's taken to a mansion where he's interrogated by someone named Townsend, but Roger genuinely doesn't know anything. He tries to tell them they must have gotten the wrong man, but they think it's all an act.
Did you call me Kaplan?
I know you're a man of many names, but I'm perfectly willing to accept your current choice.
Current choice? My name is Thornhill.
When he won't cooperate, they decide to assassinate him and make it look like an accident by forcing Roger to drive while intoxicated. Roger manages to escape but ends up being arrested. He sets out to clear his name and learns that Townsend is a United Nations diplomat and is currently at the General Assembly. Roger goes there to meet Townsend only to find out...
This is Mr. Townsend.
How do you do, Mr. Kaplan?
This isn't Mr. Townsend.
that it's not the man who was interrogating him the other night.
Do you know this man?
Suddenly, Townsend is assassinated, and because Roger was once again in the wrong place at the wrong time, it looks like he's the one that did it. So now Roger is really on the run, and we as the audience have no idea what's going on any more than Roger does. But that's when Hitchcock decides to break perspective and create what's called dramatic irony, when the audience knows something the character does not. We cut to a scene inside the US intelligence agency, where we find out about their whole plan to distract Van Damme with a decoy. They've just discovered that some poor schmuck named Roger Thornhill has somehow assumed the identity of their decoy. And the leader of the operation decides to do nothing, because now Van Damme will be even more distracted. Plus, if they stepped in and rescued Roger, they would expose their operation and their undercover agent. This scene happens right at the end of the first act. For most of the movie's intro, we take Roger's perspective, where we're swept up in the confusion of this case of mistaken identity. But to really hook the audience and set up the rest of the movie, Hitchcock lets the audience know that Roger's situation is even worse than he realizes. As Roger continues trying to pick up the clues, we know he's being used as a pawn in a bigger scheme. It gives the audience a sense of anticipation, but if we've seemingly revealed the twist already by the end of Act 1, how does the movie still create mystery? That's where we meet Eve Kendall.
I tipped the steward $5 to seat you here if you should come in.
Eve helps Roger avoid the police on the train and tries to pass it off as nothing more than a flirtatious encounter. But we know it seems too good to be true. And sure enough, we soon find out that she's working for Van Damme. When they arrive in Chicago, Roger has to stay disguised to hide from the police, but he gives Eve a phone number belonging to Kaplan, and she goes to a phone booth and sets up a meeting with him. We know that Eve is working for Van Damme. We know that Kaplan isn't real, but Roger doesn't, and he's smitten by Eve. So he trusts her and goes to the meeting spot, which is a bus stop in rural Indiana. There are lots of genre influences for this movie. It's a chase film, a spy film, but Hitchcock was also inspired by noir mysteries. And here he wanted to flip a classic type of scene on its head. In noir movies, the hero often has to arrange to meet a dangerous person in a dark alleyway. That meeting often turns out to be a setup, and bad guys show up to try and assassinate the hero. But because this entire movie is a twist where the hero doesn't know he's the hero, the scene plays out in the opposite way. Instead of an alleyway on a rainy night, Roger's on a wide open road on a bright sunny day. As each car passes, we wonder if there's going to be somebody sinister inside, but they just keep driving. Then a mysterious man shows up and we think this has to be the assassin, but it's just a guy waiting for his bus. Then Roger notices that a nearby plane is acting suspiciously, and in one of the most famous movie scenes of all time, he is literally attacked by the plane. Roger outlasts the plane and ends up crashing into a fuel truck for a fantastic explosion. And it's here that we start to see a key aspect of the movie. Hitchcock said that the epitome of the movie was in the title. North by Northwest sounds like a point on a compass, but it doesn't exist. The movie is pure fantasy where an ordinary man with an ordinary job is suddenly thrust into a life of excitement. One where beautiful women are attracted to him and he outwits people chasing him and survives dangerous encounters. Over the course of the movie, Roger Thornhill is slowly morphing into the spy he's been mistaken for. After surviving the unconventional assassination attempt, Roger returns to Chicago to confront Eve, and she tells him they can never see each other again. He follows her to an art auction and finds out she's working for Van Damme and finally accepts that she betrayed him. Van Damme is using the auction as a cover to smuggle top secret information on rolls of microfilm. The microfilm isn't really important, it's just a MacGuffin, which is a plot device that motivates characters in a story to act, but ultimately doesn't really matter to us as the audience. Hitchcock didn't invent the term MacGuffin, but he popularized it.
A MacGuffin you see in most films about spies. It's always called the thing that the characters on the screen worry about, but the audience don't care.
To escape Van Damme's men at the auction, Roger gets himself arrested again.
You're a genuine idiot.
Thank you.
But it's here that US intelligence finally steps in. But it's only because they want to use Roger in their final plan. Why would Roger agree to help the people that used him as bait? Well, when he, and us as the audience, find out that we didn't actually know the full story. Eve isn't working for Van Damme, she's the undercover agent. Roger now realizes that Eve had no choice but to portray him and was even trying to protect him at times. At the beginning of the story, we knew nothing, just like the main character. Then Hitchcock lets us in on the secret, making us think we have the upper hand. Then he pulls out the rug from under us only to show that we were still in the dark. Roger is taken to Mount Rushmore where Van Damme has a private home and an airstrip and is planning to leave the country with the microfilm. So now we know Eve's real identity and so does Roger. But Eve doesn't know that Roger knows, and Van Damme doesn't know any of it. If he finds out, Eve's mission and her life will be at stake. So when Roger shows up, she thinks he may expose her and she feels she has no choice but to stop him with deadly force.
Save the phony tears.
But then Hitchcock does it again and reveals that this was all part of the plan. Eve has now escaped and Van Damme thinks George Kaplan is dead. Everyone goes home happy. Except we've been duped. The agency just used Roger as a pawn yet again. Eve isn't just escaping, she just proved her loyalty to Van Damme by assassinating Kaplan. She's going to leave the country and continue spying on Van Damme. And this process continues. Roger goes to save Eve and it's a never-ending series of mini twists and fake-outs that culminates, as Hitchcock always wanted, with Roger and Eve being chased onto the Mount Rushmore monument. Just not in Lincoln's nose. And you might have been surprised at how abruptly the movie ends. Just as all the bad guys have been defeated, and Roger pulls Eve up from a ledge.
I can't make it.
Yes, you can. Come on.
Roger.
Come along, Mrs. Thornhill.
We match cut to them in a train, safe and sound. Once there's no longer any possibility for suspense, Hitchcock basically says, what's the point in continuing the movie? With North by Northwest, Hitchcock created a chase film where the thrill wasn't so much the chase itself, but in how the constant flow of new information changed how we looked at the chase. As the audience, we just get to go along for the ride, but if we look at it from a storyteller's perspective, it's a complicated web of which characters know what secrets and when, including us as the audience. And that's why Hitchcock is the master of suspense. And next week, for our final movie of the month, we'll be taking a look at a chase that seems pretty straightforward. A man and a woman have to flee from a relentless assassin that's hunting them. But the stakes are raised as high as they can go because the future of humanity itself is in jeopardy. The Terminator follows Sarah Connor, a young woman who is targeted not for something she's done, but for something she will do in the future. She'll become the mother of the man who will lead the human resistance in a war for our own survival. And our future enemies are trying to make sure that leader is never born. This is the movie that truly launched the film careers of James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and it remains one of the most recognized depictions of a world taken over by artificial intelligence, and has influenced countless films after it. So here's some questions to keep in mind while you watch. How does Sarah Connor evolve as the chase progresses? What do you think her arc symbolizes in the story? What do you think of the concept of fate and how it appears in this movie? Can we actually change the course of the future? How does the depiction of artificial intelligence in this movie differ from how you usually see it depicted? Do you feel this representation captures the potential threat of AI? So let's chat about North by Northwest in the comments, and I'll see you back here next Sunday to discuss The Terminator. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.